just in time management, but in fact, we're just out of time management. So that's.
I was in a future recruiting Brainfood Live.
How so? Oh, you're logged into a different show, basically.
I was logged into next week's show.
Oh crap! I wonder whether I sent the wrong update to people.
No. It's entirely my fault. No, I just. It was entirely my fault. Yeah.
All right. I've been making so many mistakes this week. I think I'm brain's just fried. So it wouldn't surprise me if I made a massive snafu. Like I'm ready for the break. You know what I mean? I'm ready for having a couple of weeks just downtime. So yeah, I'm making lots of errors right now.
I mean, just by way of example, you called hundreds of people Karen last week, which I thought was just deliberately being offensive, but it was actually just a mistake.
It was a massive mistake. I don't even know how that happened. But thankfully, everyone was quite humorous about it, and I didn't get that many like spam reports. But there we go. Anyway,
all the names Karen.
I know it's the wrong column, isn't it? But anyway, welcome everybody to Brainfood Live on Air. We're nearly there. It is episode 236, and we're bringing it to you every Friday, no fail. This is kind of episode 2 of a 2-part series we're doing, of a 4-part series we're doing, should I say, which is all about look back on what's happening this year in 2023. I'm going to try and focus on 2 topics that are kind of related, but we do know they're separate. But we're going to try and bring them together in like part A, part B. Halfway through, we're going to flip over. So first half, we're going to talk about recruitment advertising, what's happened in recruitment advertising this year. Second half, we're going to flip over and think about employer branding, what's happened on EB for this year. So we've got like some world-class experts. I don't actually understate that are joining us and talking us through both of these aspects. It's going to be brilliant. So folks, before we kick through, just want to make sure that audio and video is fine. Hopefully I fixed my mic, by the way, so I should be sounding a lot better. If you can hear me in Crowdcast, do let me know in the chat. We should be live streaming this in everybody's channel. So I think we've got me on my LinkedIn. We've definitely got you, Adam, on yours. Stephen O'Donnell's doing it. Luke Davis, I think, doing it. Rob Walker, of course. If you're watching this on any of these LinkedIn lives, comment below. Let me know whether you can hear and see me okay. I think we're okay there. Let me do a quick check. Yeah, cool. I think we're fine. All right, we have to thank our sponsors as ever. And today, our sponsor is a repeat sponsor. It's the newest, latest thing, category kind of defining application. It's poetry. Poetry by Adam Gordon. So Adam, you just happen to be here, so you might as well tell us a bit about recruiter enablement and why people should care about poetry.
Yeah, sure. Okay, thank you. So Poetry is we describe it as a recruiter enablement workspace. It's solving 2 challenges. The first is it's bringing together many solutions that recruiters currently have to access right across their desktop, causing them stress and time trying to do the toggle tax and find everything. Solutions for marketing, for recruitment operations, for recruiter learning, and bringing together all the different third-party tools as well, accessible from easy-to-click tiles. Big emphasis on recruitment marketing. So we're offering solutions to help recruiters be better at creating social media posts, in-mail messages, emails, job adverts, personas, getting competitor intelligence so that they can build better communications. It's Gen AI enabled. We have a function called Inspire Me. You fill in a couple of fields in a form and it sends a 30-sentence prompt into the large language model we use to return back for you pretty much what you're looking for. There's one free workspace for an admin in every company. So you can sign up for your poetryhr.com. And I hope that's interesting.
Oh, wow. Some people are saying Crowdcast is frozen. I don't know whether that's you or me. Yeah, I think we're fine. But you know what? I'm not confident on my IT. And it's basically BT have refused to come around now. They literally said, no, it's fine. I said, listen, mate, it ain't fine. So I need to get need to get a figure out why. I wonder whether the choppiness might also be because we're multi-streaming as well. But hopefully we can hear everyone okay as we go through. So we just have to bear with this limited ability we can do anything about that. All right, poetryhr.com. Check it out, particularly if you have a large a sort of recruiter team. I think this thing scales to effectiveness. So the more recruiters you have, the better. All right, cool. Let's review the newsletter, mate. Let's blast through that. What did you see that was interesting last week, mate?
Well, the first one was the results of your poll. I've referenced the results of your poll a few times recently, actually. Only 26% of people have hired more this year than they did last year. So 74% of people have hired the same or less, mostly less. Yeah, I mean, it's just pretty straightforward evidence of it's been a pretty shitty year.
Yep, I think so. And this is not about wallowing in negativity, but it's useful always to get a little bit of a benchmark to see where it's at, because I think we're all a little bit lacking in confidence in our own assessment of affairs, because obviously we're only looking at our own business most of the time. But yeah, it was a useful poll, and I'm doing a lot of this polling, by the way, for a particular reason. Because I'm going to do a forecast post for next year as to what it looks like. And I'm actually going to go to some of these polls and say, look, this year it was like this. And I'm going to try and be very specific with a number, a kind of measurement, and a way in which you can test the prediction. So it's not just, oh, I think we're going to get better next year. It's going to be, look, very specifically, actually, there's going to be increased chatbot implementation by 40% based on this measurement. And then you can test whether I've got it right or wrong going forward. So that's what I'm doing a lot of these polls going forward from there. Anyway, yeah, polls are interesting. Okay. We're going to keep rolling. Give us a couple more, mate.
Yeah, well, another one which unfortunately is a bit more wallowing again is that Atomico, the investment company, put out a sort of state of European tech report, and there's been less than half the number of IPOs and acquisitions at $1 billion plus in Europe this year compared to 2022. And 2022 itself was quite a suppressed year. So, I mean, yeah, I think if you've come out of 2023 alive, then good.
It's a big winnowing effect, and this is what you're going to get. Basically, the businesses that emerge from this are going to be fitter, stronger, tougher, more confident. We just got to grit through. You got to have that mental strength to get there. And that's not to say it's a weak thing to quit. I think that's totally fair to do if that's right for you and your business. But it's moments like this that does it's a big kind of winnowing out of the affair. Atomico, every year they produce this report. It is a fantastic report. It's one of the best I've seen in terms of quality, in terms of the level of data they provide. I think everyone should read it. But if you're a tech person or you're a tech recruiter, you absolutely need to read it. So easy to download. Just go check it out on the link I've just shared.
I think we do emphasize tech a lot on this show, but I think that there is a downstream effect. If the tech sector is doing well, then it tends to be the economy's doing well overall. It feels like tech's a bellwether. And if tech's suppressed, then it's very likely that the economy is going to be suppressed.
Yep, I think so. I mean, it's definitely related. And as we're getting educated as to how the economy works, we know different sectors operate in different places as well. But yeah, I mean, a lot of the exciting stuff that's been happening over the last decade in recruiting has actually been tech focused. So we've seen that. At the same time, we're going to look into more high volume. I think next year, Brainfood, we're going to talk a lot more in terms of blue collar hiring, entry level hiring, that type of thing, international hiring. A lot of that may not actually be specifically about tech at all. So yeah, it's important, but I don't think it's necessarily directly representative. Okay, cool. Give us another one, mate.
Right. Okay. I actually only have one more this week. There was an article on Stack Overflow written by Stack Overflow, which said that people being productive working from home is not really the point. Well, it is the point for the shareholders and the CEO. But what they said is missing from the conversation is the fact that people are actually happier working from home. And also companies can have more diverse workforces if they're allowing people to work from home. It feels like we've been talking about this subject for years, but well, we have. But I don't think it's any less relevant because attitudes are changing. It's been a prolific year for CEOs trying to get people back into the office. So while I agree that if you've got the ability to work from home, then you probably are going to be more happy because you can choose what you want to do. I think I do want to be a bit like Gordon Gekko about this, which is if the company's not doing great, the CEO needs to do what the CEO needs to do to make the company work well. So it's horses for courses, and distributed workforce is not the right thing for a lot of companies, whereas it is the absolute right thing for others.
Yeah, and there's a tension also between what's right for a human being, what's right for the company. Those two things are not always aligned. Anybody who's built a company at any scale would probably recognize that, because the founder of the company, the stakeholders, the shareholders obviously have a different type of commitment compared to someone who's just an employee. Even though the rhetoric is we're all in it together, we're all family, etc., etc., there is a different level of commitment. And so I'm really pleased to see that blog post by Stack Overflow, because it's kind of a conversation I've been intimating a little bit over this year, which is that we shouldn't actually defend remote based on productivity gains. We should defend remote based on the fact it's better. We do actually do less work. I'm quite clear on it. The reason why we like remote is because we ipso facto do less work. That's why we like it. And we should defend it on that basis. You know what I mean? We go into the office, we get ground down, we're complaining about overwork, we're complaining about mental health, we're complaining about, you know what I mean, we can't see our kids, we can't do all of those things. Well, guess what? The reason why remote is better, because it does actually rebalance us a little bit. So it's a negotiation we have to have with the employers on this. But hopefully, as we go forward, we can see that enlightened employers will be able to provide those types of conditions. And if not, again, marketplace will basically determine where we're at on that. All right,
I get a lot more work done from home because I do far less non-urgent meetings.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think people work it out themselves if they don't have you sitting in front of them. Where if they've got you sitting in front of them, they come over and start asking you about stuff that they're just being lazy. They could work it out themselves. So I honestly think it can work the opposite way. I think it's all about the individual's personality as well.
It works for exactly the same reasons. This is not a remote sort of topic, so we'll have to skip this real quick. But the bottom line is, the reason why some people like remote is because it gives the opportunity to learn from more experienced people. Therefore, younger people typically, or younger people in their career, typically like to be remote because precisely they can ask people and learn across the desk. But that's exactly the reason why experienced people don't like remote, because they get interrupted more. And they're less able to function and be productive on their own work. So it's the exact same thing. Basically, the minus for experienced workers that you get interrupted, the plus for the inexperienced workers that you can do the interrupting. And that's why there's that tension between, some people pro and con. And then, of course, you add the home conditions to it. Different story. There's a pattern as well in terms of how many kids you've got, I think. If you've got loads of young kids, I found that the parent wants to go in. Because it gives them space away from young kids that obviously want to interact with you all the time. Which others don't have this situation. So domestic circumstances is a key factor. But anyway, I think we know enough about it. We're gonna just have to. We'll see where we're at. I mean, we know that we want to have the flexibility, but there's going to be a trade-off either way. All right, cool. Let's get on with this, mate. We're not going to ask your opinion on this, Adam, because I need you to critique all of this along with me, because you and I fairly ignorant on a lot of this, aren't we? I want to bring on Alex Chukovsky first, because he was great, always is one of the great commentators in our space, I think. And we saw him at TA Tech earlier this week, and he was fabulous, of course. And I actually want him to basically talk to us about this, because a lot of people in our audience, I don't think, are particularly aware of how Google works when it comes to job advertising. You know, the biggest search engine, the biggest aggregator, and we should know this. So let's bring on Alex. See how he is. There he is. Alex, how are you doing?
Guten Tag. Hi.
Guten
How are
Tag.
you?
Up to you. Back in Munich. I hope you're okay.
Back in Munich after 8 hours from London.
I will be in Munich on the 14th of June, 2024. The opening game of Euro 2024, Scotland versus Germany.
Oh,
okay. Nice.
Exciting.
At the Allianz Stadium.
Are we gonna meet for a fight or for a beer?
Let's decide closer to the time.
You know what? Scotland might actually do over Germany. It's been one of the better Scottish squads for a long time, and Germany obviously have getting busy losing to Liechtenstein and stuff like this recently. So whoever it is, it's been Germany have to turn it around in tournament style. I think they've just rolled in with like one of the most demoralized records we've seen for a long time. So let's see how we go. Anyway, Alex, for the people who don't know you, why don't you quickly introduce yourself? Who are you? What it is you do?
I do two things. I run niche job boards for a living, and on the other hand, I have a consulting business where I help other job boards, aggregators, and ATSs with all kinds of funny problems like SEO, Google Jobs optimization, job classification, programmatic job advertising, pretty much the whole stack. The only thing that I don't do is plain marketing. So yeah, happy to help.
No, I mean, and this is really important because I do think that recruiters in general are quite ignorant of the field that you operate in, and it could do with the education. But let's do the history first. I mean, in 2000, the challenge was, okay, 2023, what actually happened in recruitment advertising as far as things like SEO and Google was concerned? I mean, can you give us a bit of a timeline as to what the major events were this year as far as you saw it, Alex?
Yeah, so on Google Jobs, which is this thing that pops up when you search for a job title and location on Google, in the beginning of the year, it kind of looked pretty bleak. If you asked me, I would have said that it's probably over as a product. And then as we moved along 2023, a lot of exciting stuff happened. First, we got two different large updates of the core Google algorithm. So the thing that can really destroy your SEO, mostly driven because of generative AI and the whole generative search experience. So I saw a few job boards get hit pretty bad, especially the ones that did not have a good content strategy or were only aggregating jobs from other job boards, so like traditional aggregators. But Google Jobs also got a few updates on the ranking algorithm. They do happen occasionally, but this year I would say that I have detected probably about two large updates. So it's becoming a lot more complicated to optimize your Google Jobs performance in the saturated markets like the US and the UK. In Europe and in Germany, where we are like technologically 10 years behind the rest of the world, still plenty of opportunities, obviously in France and Italy too. And then I think somewhere in summer or the end of summer, we saw Tom from Appcast posted a screenshot of Google Job Ads, which is going to be essentially the job sponsoring product from Google. It's not going to be part of Google Jobs. It's going to have its own space at the top of the search result above the first sponsored results. This is very exciting. I think it's going to shake up the industry a lot. And just a month earlier, we saw the first new tests of the Google Jobs UX. So there is a new UX being tested for Google Jobs right now, the organic product. And Google has been also testing SERP features. So these are these additional, real estates in Google on the search result page that you see, like something like the answers, for example, or in our case, there are these new nice search pages for jobs, for job boards, right? So that they give more prominence to job boards. There is a direct button that pushes you immediately into the Google Jobs UX. So lots of changes. And to me, it sounds like Google is back into recruitment marketing full-time.
Very, very interesting overview, Alex. A couple of things that you mentioned that I didn't realize. I didn't realize there was potentially a new kind of Google product that isn't related to Google for Jobs, but it's as you say, it's would this be a new way for employers to potentially advertise and to advertise a job and basically have it positioned above the other sponsored results?
Absolutely, yeah. So the scope of this product is that you, as a job advertiser, can dominate the whole SERP page. So you can have the top area with the sponsored job ads. They look a little bit like car ads and shopping ads, if you know them. Then at the bottom, you have the usual sponsored job alerts. Then you have the first organic results. Then you have Google Jobs. And if you're someone like, large names that have a pretty good organic and paid campaigns, you can own these pages. You can literally own, I don't know, product manager jobs in London. You can be the only brand that appears in these searches. I find this very intriguing.
Yes, that is a big. I mean, Google have always had this latent threat, haven't they? They've always had the ability, given the fact everyone finds sort of content initially through Google. They could have always have done this, but they never did, and they allowed companies like Indeed to emerge to kind of be a vertical in jobs. A company like Skyscanner to emerge to be a vertical in flights. And it was all puzzling. Like, why didn't they actually, produce this? But they never did. But it may well be that they're in a situation where they want to get their act together. Perhaps there's more interest in revenue generation now that ads in general are being pressured. And perhaps finally Google are starting to think, you know what, we can't roll into this new world with 95% dependency on ad revenue, purely in traditional ad revenue. They need to find other ways to get some money in. So very interesting. Alex, where would people find more information about this? Is there a sole source? I mean, is there a place that you post this stuff? How do people like?
Yeah, my LinkedIn and my blog, alexandrechukowski.com, it has only 5 articles, but it's picking up slowly.
Yeah, share your blog in there, Alex, and also share. I've also shared your LinkedIn as well. Definitely follow Alex. He's a really good commentator with a very clear specialism, which I really like. Because it gives people, I think, a very not an accurate window, because everyone's obviously biased, but it gives people a window into a field that they perhaps wouldn't normally spend a lot of time doing. So that's exactly where you want to do. So Alex, listen, thank you so much for joining us, man. We're going to roll on, roll off, because we've got tons of people to bring on. So thank you very much.
Thanks for having me.
Time. Great to see you. And we'll see you soon, man.
See you soon. Bye-bye.
Super interesting. I know we've got skeptics in the crowd there, Jeff. I totally get you. Google, when is it happening? We don't know. They've got a long history of promising the world and not doing anything. I think there's got to be a change. They've got to respond to some of these huge changes that have affected ads in general, and also now with generative AI affecting potentially search. They just can't sit there on ad revenue in the traditional sense. So I think we're going to see a surge of Google stuff happening, and it'll start bleeding into all of the work we do. Okay, we're going to go to programmatic advertising straight away. Let's bring on Josh Willows and Robin Stander, should I say. Robin, I hope you're still with us. Yes, he is. Main stage, and we've got Josh as well. I'm interested to know where we're at with Josh is just Josh. I'm interested to know where we're actually at with programmatic, because it's been one of those categories where we've been waiting for adoption, at least in the UK. And I'd be interested to know from Robin whether he can give us an update on that. Before we kick off, Robin, good to see you. Can you quickly intro yourself? Who are you? What it is you do?
Yes. How you doing? Good to see you, Adam. Good to see you, Han. Interested to hear that you got my name wrong, despite meeting me about 20 times in person. Enjoyed seeing Alex's beard. That was nice. Also, in the comments section, I know there was a lot of negativity around your email, but my sister is called Karen. So when received, I just assumed it had been sent to the wrong person. So I'm Robin Stander. I'm Vice President of Sales at Appcast. I was brought into Appcast to lead our growth with high volume enterprise companies. My background is I spent 11 years with TotalJobs.com. I was head of international sales, so I've worked in what I would deem to be the traditional or tenured-based advertising model. And in 2016, I set up ZipRecruiter's UK business, which is obviously the next step in the process as we move towards cost per click. ZipRecruiter obviously did a very, very good job in the United States. They adopt more of an aggregation model here in the UK. And then been with Appcast for almost 3 years now, and everything is going very well.
Fantastic stuff. I've invited the wrong Josh. I've now invited the right Josh. Thank you, wrong Josh, for not accepting that invite. It would have been great to have you, but basically, we've got the right Josh in here now. Okay, great.
He's invited the wrong Josh. He got your name wrong, and actually, the last thing he said to me when I saw him on Wednesday in person was, he's getting worse for remembering people's names and getting people's names wrong.
You know what? I think it's early onset dementia. I gotta be honest. There's a problem with my memory. It always has been. It's getting worse. So I need to really, do some brain stimulation or something like mushrooms, maybe. I don't know.
The cod liver oil at the moment.
Cod liver oil, yeah, absolutely. Get some better sleep. All that stuff has to be. Yeah, I think Karen should be default invite. If you're Karen, if your first name is Karen, will you just come on? You open invite anytime. All right. Whilst Josh is getting on, Robin, just give us a quick overview. Programmatic advertising. Can you give us, for the people who don't know what this is, give us the 60-second version of this?
Yeah, absolutely. So if you think about job boards and how they've existed for the last 23 years, you've got traditional duration or tenure-based advertising, whereby you would post a defined number of jobs within a defined period of time, and you would pay a defined cost for that. At the end of a given advertising month, irrespective of the outcome, so irrespective of whether you've received one application, no applications, or you've made 10 hires, the invoice is payable in full. Indeed changed that business model and they moved to something called cost per click, and obviously there's been a phenomenal amount of noise about that in the last 24 hours and the direction they're potentially going in. Programmatic advertising from our perspective at Appcast is the evolution of that model, whereby we do cost per completed apply, which is applications delivered directly into the ATS, and that is whereby you connect or you build an integration with the ATS, and then you use data to inform the software about the best places to buy traffic from. And so if ZipRecruiter is driving applications that in turn convert down funnel into interviews and hires, then the software would deem that to be a good source of traffic, and it would proportionally spend more budget with that source. And it would start to take budget away from the sources that are underperforming based on the rules and the bids that we put into the system. But it's about taking automated approach to your buying rather than using bias in the decision-making process.
Yeah, it's taking the human out of it to a large degree. You set a budget, it basically, you got a load of distribution, and it's from that distribution that you figure out which is the best channels that are converting for you, wherever you decide that conversion makes sense. And then basically it will reallocate budget to where it's working most effectively. It seems to me like a no-brainer, but it seems that adoption isn't particularly high, and it's been sticking at the sub 10% type of range for a long time. So, Robin, give us an overview this year, 2023. How has it gone? I mean, has it have we increased adoption of programmatic? Has it reduced? What degree has it been adopted in the UK at the very least?
Yes, I'm going to. Hi, Josh. I'm going to use made up numbers here, but if you went back 12 months. We would be having this same conversation, and I would have told you that I was building momentum in the marketplace. As we move forward 12 months, we are fully engaged. And what we're finding is, certainly from our perspective, is that recruiters are calling out for this type of approach to market. So the market has shifted. We've been in a very, very tight labour market, where there's been a lot of vacancies available and not enough candidates to meet the demands of those vacancies. As a result, recruiters have been reaching out to us in significant numbers. So the amount of inbound requests we've had has far outstripped what we had in the previous 2 years. And people seem genuinely more interested in taking a more data-based approach to their advertising. So we're having lots and lots of conversations, and the adoption is significant versus where we were previously. This is generally with high volume hiring companies. We're also getting a lot of inbound interest from small to medium sized companies, which maybe programmatic probably isn't the right fit for. But in the high volume pace is gathered a lot of pace. If you look at the US market, where we're founded and we've been going since 2014, 1/3 of all job ad spend in the US now runs through Appcast platform. So it's fully engaged. Everybody's doing it. Madeline Lorano, who I quote a lot from Aptitude Research, she did a report about 6 months ago, and she said that 62% of companies that she surveyed are looking to increase their investment in programmatic advertising in 2024. So it feels like all guns blazing right now.
Cool. Folks, in the comments section, wherever you're watching this, let me know what your thoughts are on programmatic. Have you used it this year? Do you intend to use it or input any budget onto it next year? Just say yes or no to those questions. I'd be very interested to know what the general vibe is here. Josh, great to see you. Thanks for persevering, man. Why don't you quickly introduce yourself, Josh? Who are you? What it is you do?
Yeah, sure. So my name is Josh Willows. I've worked in job advertising or recruitment advertising for over a decade. But if we just focus on 2023, I had a couple of different jobs in the same industry. So I started the year in TA, where I was working, I'm responsible for global job advertising at IBM. I'm now vendor side at Veritone Hire, where I'm head of programmatic sales. Veritone Hire, probably a new name for everyone on the call. It should be, because it's only a couple of weeks old. But basically, Veritone have purchased a couple of businesses in the job advertising space, notably PandaLogic and Broadbean. So whether it's traditional or programmatic advertising, we have a platform that combines the two.
That's amazing, man. I mean, it's because you've seen it from two sides this year, haven't you, Josh? In a sense, obviously in-house at IBM and now vendor side. How have you seen the year in programmatic, so to say? If you could describe if you could give us a bit of your own verdict over the last 12 months on the industry, what would you say?
It was so bleak at the beginning. I was going to try and inject some positivity, but I think I would look at it as kind of tough for a lot of vendors in the programmatic space. I mean, there was a simple fact that there was less jobs in 2023 advertised than there was in 2022. That's going to hurt everybody because
is that a hard fact? Basically, absolute number of jobs advertised has gone down this year compared to last.
Yeah. Yes. If you look at the number of job roles, pick your market, US, UK, we had a big boom right in 2021, first half of 2022. This has really been coming from the second half of 2022. But yes, there's less job numbers that are advertised. Now, on the flip side, and this is where I'm going to try and be positive, there's been more applications per job, and we've seen that trend going up. So the obvious thing being more candidates on the market, that leads to more candidates applying for jobs. So when you look at it, and I'm going to try and spin a positive, if you're an employer, what that means is when there's more candidates applying, the CPC or the CPA, it goes down, right? So it's a fact really that if you advertise a job today, you'll get more candidates from your money than you would have done at the same point in 2022. Those prices have come down slightly. If I look at it from an employer and being a large employer that lent more into programmatic advertising this year, I think that I was really looking at it from my perspective for two reasons. So I look at it first of all for kind of simplicity. So I love traditional job boards. I've worked for traditional job boards and we still think that they have their place, but we all know that if you use more than one, it's a very unregulated market. You've got to set up tracking for each individual one. They have different pricing structures. That was one side of it. But given the market we're in, and let's be frank, for most businesses, it's a tough market. It was the agility that was kind of the real sell that like senior corporate people in IBM bought into. The reason being, right, if I work on a more like credit-based board, then I'm tied into that. I have to commit to a certain amount. I have to use that inventory. If I don't have the jobs to fill them, I lose them. If you have something like programmatic and I need to hire salespeople in the US in January, but that switches and I need tech developers in the UK in April, doesn't matter. You just kind of route the money wherever you need it. So it's kind of like a special ops that you can go out. And I used to just use the phrase like turning the tap on, turn the tap off. If you need candidates, turn the tap on. When you're done, turn it off. And that's one other thing that I think is underplayed sometimes. Like credit-based boards, the biggest strength is you can put a job on them, and if you get 50 applicants or 5,000 applicants, you pay the same amount. Now, in a market where we have under-resourced teams, actually sometimes turning the tap off is what we need to do, because we have too many candidates applying for the jobs, and we need to be able to have a way to assess them properly and respond properly. So those are a couple of the things that I saw from the in-house side that I think made a real difference.
You know what? Really interesting. The programmatic advertising, as more companies adopt it, it'd be more accurate representation of how many jobs are out there. Because generally speaking, you can switch jobs on and off more efficiently. Whereas if you're time-based or duration-based, how many of those jobs are actually technically filled, but the job's still hanging on in there? You haven't manually gone and deleted it. Most people just like run it to term and leave it to go. It's the same with CVs. Like if you've applied if you banged your CV up on a job board and you got a job, you don't go to every job board you've gone to and start deleting it off. You just leave it. And so you've got a lot of dodgy data out there that every analyst is reading and thinking, oh yeah, there's an active candidate or there's an active job. Actually, it may not be. So programmatic, as the adoption improves, so should the intelligence. It will be a better source for us to understand the health of the market as more people use it. Very, very interesting. Okay, cool. What else? We've got to talk about sort of, let's talk briefly about some of the cost per application issues. I think what terrifies people generally is exactly that sense. It's like, all right, great. Maybe I'll be wasting 500 quid on this job ad, but I know it's 500 quid. It's not going to be a case where suddenly it scales out to 10 grand or something because I've just had an overwhelming ad response. And in fact, that's actually one of the criticisms of Indeed's kind of experimentation with cost per application. And we're going to talk to Jeff a little bit about that when he comes on. And we know, of course, they've abandoned that now. But one of the very early complaints that they received was that companies were used to paying this amount of money for a job, and then they turn up like 24 hours later and it's actually banged them for several thousand, and they said, what the heck is this? So people, I think, have that residual fear of this. How do we resolve that? Has the education improved in terms of how we deal with it? Has the customer service improved to help people avoid this situation?
Yeah. I mean, there's the approach that, well, if you look at the cost per click model, there is obviously a phenomenal amount of wastage in that process. So you advertise a relatively junior level role and you get hundreds of clicks. But the scenario is obviously you don't need hundreds of clicks on a junior level role. You just need 10 good quality clicks that result in 3 good quality applications. You make the hire. And then conversely, you've got your software engineers and your Java developers, and they haven't received any clicks at all. So there's a disproportionate use of the client's budget. That's changed, certainly in the last 24 months, towards a more strategic approach where people are putting rules into the software based on previous learning and based on previous data to say, listen, we only need to receive 10 applications for this role. And therefore, at the point in which the job hits 10 applications, stop spending money on it. And the job automatically switches itself off and it moves the residual budget towards the jobs that haven't received the appropriate number of applications. Now that can be done within the software, but it can also be done with the support of an account manager, a performance marketing expert who will control the performance of the account for you. So there's that. From our perspective, we obviously do cost per application, which is whereby you track to the candidate to the point on which they've clicked on the thank you, made it through to the thank you page. And there is obviously a risk, as again, obviously we've seen everything going on in the marketplace with bots and so on, that you're just going to get a load of irrelevant applications. So what we're trying to do is move to a more quality focused approach, which is whereby we track down funnel metrics. So although the invoicing mechanism is still cost per application, you're tracking things like cost per interview, volume of interviews, cost per offer, number of offers, hire, and so on. And you can do that with integrating with lots of the big ATSs like Workday, with iSIMS, SuccessFactors, Greenhouse, Smart Recruiters, and so on. So the market is catching up quickly when I'm sure Josh will be the same, when he's having conversations with customers. This is all very new to people. And so they're in a process where they're still using tenure or they're still using cost per click. And then we're having a conversation about measuring down funnel metrics all the way through to hire. So it's trying to close that gap. And everybody is very receptive to it. And when they understand that actually the integration with the ATS is relatively straightforward, there's not really much work involved in the process, then it's relatively easy to obtain.
I think we've basically failed to educate the market. I feel I feel like we've been banging on this for several years now, and it's still a mystery. Ed, by the way, I totally feel the same. People do have that fear because they don't want to stick a credit card in, and then the worst experiences that scales out. Now you're saying it doesn't happen, but the residual fear is there, so it's not being resolved. That's not being removed from the perception of the market. You know what? I think an AI interface might solve the problem here. Because part of the problem is that people are looking at a complicated dashboard and they just want to look at another dashboard they don't understand. It's like, just give people an input to say exactly as you say, here's a job, my budget for this for 10 candidates is that's the minimum, switch it off when it hits that number, and then talk to me again if I want to switch it back on again. Boom, that'll scale up the amount of adoption by a long stretch. So it's a UI issue in my opinion. And I'd be interested to know whether, actually, it's another topic of conversation, whether that's going to be reinvented in some way. But there we go. Okay, go ahead.
It's just also understanding that 12 months ago, people were considering programmatic advertising as like a dark art, and it's obviously a software-based approach to the market as well. And so it's not about working with the customer and then just leaving them to their own devices and letting them make a load of mistakes. It's about holding their hand through the process. Us or Veritone or anyone else in the market are the experts in handling the technology, and thus we set the rules, we set the bids to ensure that they get good outcomes and the spend doesn't run away and people don't have to wake up in the middle of the night worrying about it.
Yeah, very good. Okay, Josh, final word to you. Go ahead. You're going to say something anyway.
Yeah, I was just actually going to elaborate exactly what Robin said is right. I think something that a lot of people, I think, hang too much on one metric, right? So different ones that you can take different metrics and they can mean a different thing, but all of them are going to contribute towards you having a better job advertising process. So let me explain what I mean. Cost per click versus cost per apply. Well, if you're getting loads of clicks and no applications, that tells you your job advert isn't very good because you're not converting. If your application starts, application complete is bad, it means you've got a long apply process. If your application to shortlist isn't very good, it means you're not getting quality. So all of those tell a slightly different story. And part of the job that you have to be able to do is, rather than come into high-level stakeholders and say, our CPC or our CPA, I must have explained what an apply start was 1,000 times, right, across my time. So trying to take that into actionable insights is when you then become a bit more strategic in-house and also get a bit more of the kind of senior level stakeholders on your side.
Yeah, I'd be interested to know what kind of educational stuff you guys do for 2024. But that's the conversation for next year. We have to move on, folks, because we're rattling through this. So Robin Stander and Josh Willows, thank you for joining us and talking to us about programmatic for this year. Okay, let's crack through, folks. As I'm going to get on, actually, we're going to get on Louise Triance and Jeff Dickey Chasins, of course, the legend that is. I think this is the debut for Jeff, the job board doctor. Let's see whether we can make this work. So we're going to talk about classic job boards with these two. What is going on in the job board world. We've been like kind of. I think Louise is not even here. Yeah, she mentioned she might actually be unable to attend. All right, she's here. I'm going to invite her. I don't think Louise is actually here, but that's okay. Oh, there he is.
Hey.
Jeff, how are you doing? Long time no see, sir. Very nice to see you.
Yeah, I think the last time I saw you, you were drunk. And I was too.
That was a long time ago, man. Considering I've now gone completely teetotal, we can actually timestamp when that was. A long time ago. But it was great. Next time you're in London, I'm more than happy to have another glass of wine with you, Jeff. Jeff, for the people who don't know you, can you quickly introduce yourself? Who are you? What it is you do?
Sure. I run a consultancy called The Job Board Doctor. I am a business consultant. I work with job boards around the world and have been doing so since 2009. I got in the industry in 97 with this company called Dice. And, I work with job boards everywhere. I've probably worked with about 700 or so job boards around the world over the last 14 years.
Amazing. You're the best person to talk to about this. And Louise, I think she is in transit. She can't join us right now, but no worries. If you get this and you want to drop in, Louise, just let me know. Okay. This is all about reviewing the last 12 months in the world of job boards, Jeff. How would you describe the main things that have happened, the general trend, the general amount of spend, the amount of activity that's gone on in that space?
Well, I think you can easily say that a lot of job boards would like to forget about 2023 after having had a bang up 2022. It was a tough year, particularly the first half. I would say that overall, most job boards experienced a drop in revenue and activity of anywhere from 20 to 35%, which is pretty significant. At this point in time, a lot of job boards are reporting upturns, and some are back to where they were in 2022. But it was pretty bad. I mean, there were, you saw layoffs from the biggest job boards out there, from ZipRecruiter and Indeed and LinkedIn. So, from that perspective, it was kind of a tough year. It's interesting. 2023 was sort of bracketed by Indeed. At the start of the year, Indeed was coming out saying, "Hey, you know what? Paper application is what you're going to have to buy from us. It's the future of job advertising," and they rolled it out. There was a lot of unhappy customers, and then they sort of backed off a little bit and said, "Okay, well, you can keep buying pay-per-click if you want to, but we really, really, really want you to buy, paper application." And then they laid off a bunch of people. Their revenue went down. Their job postings went down. And then, of course, yesterday we discovered that they have decided that they're going to eliminate paper application, and they called it a test, which was not what they were calling it back in January of 2023. So they kind of covered us on both ends. And then, of course, I cannot forget to mention that X decided to launch their incredible job board product. And I think there's been much that's been written about it. It's really stunning. Sometimes I just look at it and just get shivers going up and down my spine. It's horrible, and it's probably going to crash and burn in the next 6 months, would be my guess. And then finally, Alex talked about Google Jobs, so I won't. I'll just say that they continue to tease us with all these things that they're going to do, and maybe some of that will happen. But I personally, and I've said this in other settings, I personally don't see it as a negative thing for job boards in general. It's just going to be another avenue for them to use, and also for large, enterprise level employers.
Yeah, really good overview.
Jeff, just a quick question. Quick question about what you said about Twitter. So I've seen it as well, and yeah, it doesn't look particularly sophisticated, but you can't really underestimate the power of the traffic. So they've got considerably more people going there than 99% of job boards. Mm-hmm. Does that give them an advantage?
It's an interesting situation. I mean, expand what's going on with Twitter at the top level on advertising with the job postings, right? There's major advertisers that are fleeing X because it's become sort of the cesspool of bad things. And it doesn't look like there's going to be any attempt to try to rein that in. And I suspect that if you're an employer, and particularly, a name brand employer, I'm not sure you want to have your job ads appearing on the platform. If Disney. You're unwilling to advertise your company there, why would you advertise your job ads? And I think that's the biggest conundrum. And then I think the other problem is they probably are going to suffer a little bit from the problem that Facebook had, which is they don't understand recruiting. And so they will have trouble creating a recruiting product unless they just wholesale, buy someone that knows what they're, buys a company that does that for a living. So.
On that note, I think you're right on the job ads. I don't think Twitter will be, or X as they now call it, is going to be an effective way to distribute jobs simply because they've got no data on this, and how they're going to actually connect people that might be looking for work. They don't know. However, I think it might become a decent search product, because I think some latest release, they're saying they're going to start doing things like expanded profiles and being able to search profiles and stuff like this. So I think the audience members who are kind of more of the sourcing mindset might look at Twitter again and think, you know what, this could be a place to actually hunt folks out. But yeah, you're right. But going back on the timeline, basically, Indeed have nicely bookended us, haven't they, with a big bang launch that they have rolled back at the end of the year. So it's been a 12-month, probably quite a painful 12 months, in fact, very painful 12 months, because they've had to make cutbacks also, and they've rolled this big thing out. Hopefully, I think in an attempt to kind of get a win for this year. It has not been a win, and they've rolled it back. So tough year all around for job boards. I think that's fair to say, isn't it? Any bright sort of silver linings have you seen this year? That, anything in the job board world that you thought, you know what, yes, this is impressive. Feel free to continue to be miserable, Jeff. It's fine.
No, I think it's interesting. I primarily work with niche boards. I don't work with the Indeeds, the world generally. Sometimes I do in certain countries. And so I think, what we saw here was sort of a bifurcation of the market where the generalist sites really suffered because they were so tied to high growth markets and because they really depend on volume. And so if you mess with the volume, it really screws you up. The niche boards, it really depended on the niche. And so there were certain niches where I would talk to people in a certain niche and they'd say, yeah, we're having a great year. And others say, oh, the first 3 months was horrible. Now we're having a wonderful year, and so it really just depends on where you're working. And also, what kind of board are you? I mean, are you like a really boring traditionalist board where the only thing you do is you have duration-based postings and nothing else? You probably had a sucky year. If you're one of those sites that sort of has more content, it's more content-driven, it's more interactive, it's got more engagement with its candidates, you probably had a good year. People left and then they came back because they were coming back for multiple reasons. So.
Yeah. Jeff, George Larocque was on here last week and showed where investment in HR tech has gone this year. And as normal, investment into TA tech's been massively dominated by job boards and marketplaces. Have you got any predictions around innovation for the next year or so?
I would say that most of the innovation, and I hesitate even really to call it innovation because it's been going on for a couple of years now, but I think most of it's going to be happening with generative AI, chatbot type things. There's a number of boards out there that have already instituted things that help with candidate onboarding, with candidate adoption of certain products that they want them to be using, like a job alert, for example, or going into a newsletter or doing an assessment or anything like that. And then we may possibly see some of that leak over into the employer side. But I have a feeling that most of that sort of stuff is going to be happening instead with the ATSs and some of the recruitment platforms rather than the job boards. Although there are some job boards that get very deep into this. They have their own ATSs, they have their own assessments, et cetera, but they've been doing that for years. So,
yeah. Cool. Jeff, listen, we have to move on. Wonderful to see you. I believe making your debut on Brainfood Live. I can't actually believe it's taken us 236 episodes to get you on. It's disgrace, particularly as we were on direct dial, right? There's no reason why this has taken so long. So we're going to have to do it and bring you back early next year. Maybe we do a forecast on what the job board market is looking like for 2024. But sure. Jeff, Dickie Chasen, it's great to see you. We'll let you go at this point, sir.
Thank you very much.
Cool. We've got to move swiftly on, folks. But before we do it, we are always going to make sure that we are leaving this conversation with more connections than we ever have before we have entered it, because we want to make sure that you guys have the conversation or the ability to continue to talk about this after we come off air, which needs to happen in 10, 15 minutes or so. So take a moment, grab your LinkedIn URL, share it in the comment thread if you're watching it on Crowdcast, or share it in the comment thread no matter where you're watching it on LinkedIn, and then make sure you connect with everyone else who's done the same. There's hundreds of people watching this in different sort of spaces. You should emerge from this with at least 20, 30, 40 really good connections that can help boost your network into 2024. And by the way, if you just turned up every week and literally just did just that, you can count the number of sort of connections you might be making, all of whom are people who are super passionate about the space, and some of whom, as Ed mentioned, some of the rock stars of the industry. So this really helps you get to where you need to go. Okay, cool. We're going to shift tack because we're going to go to employer branding. Vicky, Charu, and Steve, you've been very patient. We're going to bring you all on one panel now, and we're going to have a talk about what's happening in EB this year. Let me see if I can find the people. So Charu Malhotra, there she is. Let's invite Charu. Boom. We've got Steve Ward, I believe. Is Steve, you are here? Is he here? Yes, he is. And we've got Vicky as well. Let's see if I can find Vicky. Vicky Saunders, there she is. Nice. Cool. Let's talk about EB. In fact, whilst we get people on, do you have any thoughts on employer branding for this year, particularly, Adam? It's hard to do EB when you're sacking people, or when you're not growing. Do you think we've gone backwards? Are we in stasis? What's your view?
Yeah, I mean, I think we probably are. It's the same thing as, diversity matters when everything's going great. Marketing team matters when everything's going great. Employer brand matters when everything's going great. Unfortunately, employer brand is probably about the most important thing that a chief people officer should be focused on, and it's not up there at the top of that person's list. Right.
So there's Adam's amateurish opinion, but I do respect it because I think it may be true. Like, has it been like deprioritized in this very tough year when everyone's saying we've got to just be operationally efficient, etc., etc. Before we get into the chat, let's introduce everyone though. Let's go left to right as I see it. Charu, why don't you introduce yourself? Who are you? What it is you do?
Yep. Hi. Thanks. I'm Charu Malhotra. I've worked in recruitment marketing and employer branding for about 15 years now. Worked at Primark, Ferrero, McKinsey, and I'm currently at PA Consulting doing DEI, recruitment marketing, employer brand on a global basis. Yeah, I'm glad to be here.
Great to see you, Charu. And we've got Vicky Saunders as well. Vicky, can you quickly intro yourself? Who are you? What it is you do?
Hi, yeah, I'm Vicky Saunders. I've been leading the employer brand and EVP teams at Boots, BAE Systems and Currys for the last 10 years. I'm now the founder of the EVP consultancy and the employer brand coach.
Amazing. Great to see you, Vicky. And what a wonderful conservatory you have as well, by the way. And can I, and it's Steve Ward as well. Steve, quickly introduce yourself. Who are you? What it is you do?
Hey, Hung, my background looks terrible compared to the others, doesn't it? I should do better.
Your foreground looks terrible, Steve. Worry about that first.
Well, that's the problem as well, isn't it, really? Yeah, so look, I'm Steve Ward. Hey, everyone. I head up employer branding solutions for Universum, world's largest global job employer branding agency. Our talent attraction and branding has been my thing for years. I love it. It's the best bit of recruitment. So yes, that's what I do, and really looking forward to chatting about this stuff with a couple of my superstars sat alongside me here. I love Vicky and Charu. I've listened to them all day.
Fantastic stuff. And we've lost Adam Gordon, which of course is always a bonus. But you know what? Let's take it back up on what Adam mentioned before he stepped away. EB, has it kind of, have we seen the reality of EB in the sense that it has been deprioritized this year? You think? I mean, Charu, you're nodding your head there. So what are you seeing on that?
Yeah, I mean, I agree with Adam, which doesn't normally happen. So I'm glad this is going live. I think organisations have largely thought about employer branding in the space of recruitment, and when recruitment's so start and can be quite paralysed by what's going on in the world, it's really easy to deprioritise it, and I've seen that, and I think interesting. Is it the right thing to do? Absolutely not. But I would say that so one of your colleagues said earlier about it not being like a tap when they talk about programmatic. And that's the danger of when we look at employer branding like that. You don't switch it on and off. So I've been doing some kind of research this week around Taylor Swift and how successful she's been. And I've wanted to interject some of that when you asked the question. But I do think that's turning on and off of employer branding is a massive mistake. And it's quite dangerous. And I don't say that lightly.
Why is it a mistake, Charu?
Why is it a mistake? Well, we are always going to want to be looking for people. And employer branding isn't external. Good employer branding professionals, and I include everyone on this call and people watching, look at it internally from a retention perspective. You'll have a whole harvest of people internally that are disengaged if you don't think about it as an employer branding internal exercise. You don't want disengaged, unproductive, unhappy people who feel handcuffed to their job and they end up being disruptive in lots of different ways. So I think it's a mistake when you switch off employer branding.
Yeah, so this is connecting employer branding with general care for company culture, and not forgetting, actually, if you're not growing or you're cutting staff, actually that's when you need to apply more care, because that's when people are feeling more stressed and uncomfortable and generally high anxiety. Okay, Vicky, let's go to you on this. What's your perspective on where EB has been in 2023? Has it been like an awfully dry desert? Like, what's your view of where we're at as an industry here?
I think there are some green shoots of things that are happening. I think advocacy has totally ramped up the agenda this year. Probably, if we're honest, because of budget cuts in employer branding, and so the perception is that you can do that relatively successfully without too much cost. But I do think there is some nice experimentation starting to happen in employer branding. So one of the things that I've seen is a trend that's been happening in consumer marketing, in emotional advertising, has started to move over into employer branding, right? The top awards that Charu and I gave out, not just the two of us, but we were both RAD Award judges last year. And we gave awards for Capgemini was Work of the Year and Veolia was Best Integrated Campaign. And they were both campaigns that brought people in the room to tears in the judges' room. And that is definitely come across from consumer marketing. If you follow a guy called Andrew Tyndall on LinkedIn, he's MD, I think, of System 1, and they're one of the biggest measuring houses of advertising. And they've done this amazing work looking at emotional response to advertising and the impact that has short and long term on business outcomes. And they've been able to correlate in advertising where the ads have lower emotional response, they call it left brain advertising, that it only has a short-term impact on the brand. But if it has right brain impact, which typically includes emotions, human connections, storytelling, which is all the stuff we know works for employer branding, then it has both short-term impact and long-term impact. So we see this right now, right? It's all on TV. So the top ad for the Christmas ads that's come out is the Elf. You know, Asda have done their Elf here in the UK, and that's top of the ranking. But small stuff like Charlie's Bar and the Skilling, if anybody's seen that, if you haven't, look it up. It went absolutely viral on TikTok, and it only cost the brand 700 quid to make. And we've also seen it with nostalgia marketing this year. It's the same emotional stuff. So Disney did this like mashup piece that looked at all of the, different films they've made over the years and how it's connected with people's lives. And literally this week, Kellogg's have brought back their old Christmas ad where there's the Kellogg's cornflakes underneath the Christmas tree. That's 23 years old and they're re-airing it, So there's definitely this green shoot of that emotional advertising coming across into employer branding, and it's music to my ears because it plays totally to what we know works in employer branding, which is about that human connection.
That's amazing. And I love the term nostalgia advertising. I'm kind of thinking, yes, because I'm old enough now to have tons of nostalgia. It's a lot of material.
Remember that's our first time round, right?
Yeah, exactly. And nostalgia twice. But secondly, I think that bit of research you mentioned from System 1 would be amazing. If that's publicly available anywhere, please do share that around. Yeah. If people want that research, let me know in the comments, and we'll get it over to you.
I'll put it in Brainfood Facebook group, shall I?
Or just stick it in the comments here as well, Vicky. That would be fine.
Yeah.
Okay, go to you, Steve. You got the helicopter view to a large degree, because obviously Universum are covering tons of stuff across different markets globally as well. So where have you seen? How would you describe EB for 2023? As if you could kind of give it a one paragraph summary.
There's a reason why the two things that Sharu and Vicky have just talked about are absolutely spot on. Keeping the tap on and the emotional piece. That's exactly, if I was to capture a trend, the things I wrote down here were up and down, employer brand, stop, a bit like people were talking about the job ads earlier. It's like when you stop, you kind of stop doing it. So, and it's almost like some companies stop employer branding when they stop advertising, because they have got a bit of a hiring. They think, in that case, you don't need to bother with employer branding anymore. And that then links us then to what Vicky's talking about emotions and connection. The biggest trends this year have come out of the fact it started with tech having a pretty shocking time at the start of the year, big tech, big redundancies, etc., etc. Now, what we've noticed in the research part of our work, which would have happened in the first half of this year, is lack of love towards tech companies. So their appreciation as an ideal and top employers dropped back. Then we started to look at where do they go instead. So if people drop out of that pond, where do they go instead to get? And there are two pools given what happened. One is trust and emotion, and the other one is stability. Now, stability is probably a really obvious one. Like, we all need a bit more stability, no doubt, because of course there is, we're in a world of flux and change and challenge and financial challenges. But the emotion and the human element is really important in this shift. And the trust is the bit I'm always going to put behind it, because what we saw since COVID is a breakdown of trust between the employer and the employee. And that is only exacerbated by redundancies, broken promises, what feels like to the average employee broken promises. So therefore, where does employer brand start? It doesn't start with advertising. Starts with what's going on inside the organization and how we as employers engage with our employees in a way that therefore creates, and I would say emotion has absolutely become one of those important stories in the midst of that. But largely as well, what we've noticed a shift this year, and Vicky will see this a lot in the work that she does now as well with EVP consultancy. A lot of the EVPs are now looking inwardly focused first, with a consequence to externally focused after, rather than it being, we're creating an EVP to attract talent. We're creating now an EVP to consolidate our culture, our identity, our bloodline, and hopefully the goal within that is to bring our people together, to hold people inside the organization, to gain better relationship between the leadership and employees. And then build stories out of that. And they, I can tell you, are the best stories. The stories that come inside. Those of us who are in areas where we do copywriting. Copywriting can never capture what an employee story, in their words, absolutely feels like. And I think that's the shift I've seen. Less EVP and employer branding for outside world first, more towards inside consolidation, culture. And then that gives you an amazing platform for outside communication without it feeling like it's a sell. I love that Ben Phillips, who last time I was on this, he was on this with me this week on a panel at our Employer Branding Club, said, he said, I consider employer brand to be the reveal, like when you open the door and people, and I love that word. I used another word here in the day, I think it's like surprise, but actually reveal, I think is a really good, and I think that reveal layer is one of the things I've seen the most in the work that we've done this year. And I think it's really exciting for employer brands, much more ethical and humane potentially, if done correctly.
No, that's really, really well put. And it seems that that's a maturation of EB, isn't it? So moving away from the idea of producing EB as marketing collateral for external consumption, but more thinking about how do we codify or articulate what company culture is, and then simply externalizing that, just putting a window where there used to be a brick wall, and then allowing people to see through, this is how we work as a business.
And allowing that to be a magnetic process rather than pushing it into and that's what you learn a lot about even the job board world. You know, we've been hearing about in the first segment of this. The evolution of job boards is not about blasting everything in front of everybody's eyes. It's about how do you create a natural connection of the right people, right places, smaller funnels rather than big ones. And I think it's the same with employer branding, is that if you, with a very authentic, outwardly facing piece of content, you connect the right people, not the wrong people, and it's and rather than just sell. And I think that's this difference we were talking about this week in the EB Club, is just remove the sell, open the doors, and let people make a choice for themselves in a really much more defined and acceptable way, a more magnetic way.
It reinforces for me a question which I've asked a lot of times, and I don't know if this is a cliche, and I don't know if everybody asks this question, but why are employer branding teams and employee engagement teams split? Why is there not one person responsible for both? Well, the reason for it is because employer branding teams tend to be part of talent acquisition, and employee engagement teams tend to be in a different part of HR or possibly comms. So
yeah, I think that's a HR TA split, isn't it? I mean, it's like internal comms definitely is not part of TA, never has really been, and the debate is, should it be? Maybe with all of this, kind of company consolidation, cost cutting, and what have you, we might get a chance to more rationally align a lot of these functions and reformulate what these need to be. And it could well be that a lot of the things you mentioned, Steve, have been an inadvertent impact on cutting budget per se. Like you can imagine if a company or an EB person had mega budget to do something, they might be so excited they're immediately thinking externalization and all this that type of stuff. But now if there's like really you've been shone back, you got to think, okay, what can we do a little bit more organically? It might inherently be a bit more authentic because you can't chuck that much money towards it.
And to that point, Hung, just to come back to what Steve was saying about the reveal, the reveal of the internal culture externally. One of the other green shoots I've seen this year is in the use of TikTok, right? So TikTok has obviously it's been growing massively, but I'm seeing more and more employer brands start to use TikTok, either through their own voice or actually from an advocacy point of view. And that is a place where if you show up with too polished content, it dies, right? It has to be really authentic. Google did some great work where some of their work, it was people walking through their daily lives at work as part of their employer branding activity. And that worked really, really well for them. But it is definitely a platform to watch for employer brands, and one that we need to harness. Not just because of that opportunity from an authenticity point of view, but also just because it is changing so much about our content consumption. So it's changing the way we view videos. We're watching longer videos now. Instagram is still sticking at 60 seconds, and half of people on TikTok watch films over a minute long, and they keep adding the lengths that you can get to. So just this year now, they've added you can get up to 15 minutes. From October this year, some users can show 15-minute films now on TikTok. And the other thing is, it makes sense from a job ads point of view. Everyone starts a job search on Google, right? We all know that's where people start. But actually, TikTok is starting to take share from Google for search, particularly in Gen Z, right? So 3/4 of Gen Z are saying they're using TikTok for search. So if we want to be after Gen Z from a recruitment marketing point of view as well, TikTok's the place to be.
And it's cheap to do, isn't it? There's another thing that is definitely the reason why things go mass market is because of the ease factor. I've been thinking a lot about YouTube versus TikTok. YouTube prior to TikTok was the only place where you could do video. But of course, that's a desktop phenomena. You need to have setup, you need to have camera, you need to have production, etc., etc. Guess how many people have that? Actually, a very small number of people. Whereas TikTok obviously just need a smartphone, and like billions of people have that. So it's about accessibility and making it simple. I'd be interested. I mean, obviously, we kind of annually we do how to recruit on kind of platform, so no doubt we'll do that for TikTok as well going forward in 2024. But as we're really running, go on, Adam, you about to say something?
I'm just gonna say it also leads me to the thinking about, well, what's after that then? Because Gen Alpha use Chat GPT and Bard more than Google and more than anything else for search. So
what's the EB implications?
Where does that
in
go?
AI? Yeah, I mean that's going to be a really. To be honest with you, we've just nailed the topic of conversation for 2024, because we do know that actually the primary use case for generative AI today is in media creation, whether it's text, video, image, whatever. So it'd be really interesting to know whether we've got any examples or case studies of companies that have used it in this way that's been effective, because we also know if you fake something, which you can do so, it doesn't work. So quite right, Josh. I mean, AI and authentic, can those two things work? Are they always inherently in tension? I think there's probably a pathway through somewhere, those two things. But right now, they seem a little bit tugging away at each other. Okay, cool. Listen, we have to kind of move it on from there. We have to let you guys go because we are well over time. But I want to thank you for joining, Suchara Malhotra, Vicky Saunders, and Steve Ward. Thank you for sharing your input and insight on what's happening in EB this year.
Thanks, guys.
Thanks, guys.
Good to see you all.
Adam, by the way, I know what you're going to say. It's like, yeah, we need more time, and you're right. You know, like we got to split this up into bits, man. I mean, do you know what I mean? We're crushing it in, and we're rushing people on and off. But that's how we've arranged it. Next year we'll know better. We'll spread the Brainfood lives across chunks, across the on a daily to do the review. All right, folks, we're off. We have to let it go. Next week we are on episode 3 of our 4-parter. We're talking LinkedIn. You can't get away from LinkedIn. Recruiters are basically sign into LinkedIn every single day, every 365 days a year. I'm pretty certain you do that. Anybody watching this, we're going to review it in terms of content, newsfeed, and search. We've got Andy Foote and Irina Shamaeva, two of the best people on both of those two areas. They're going to tell us all about what's happened in LinkedIn in 2023. Okay, make sure you follow the channel. Thanks for watching, everybody. We'll see you next time. Cool. Sorry, mate. I know it's like, I know your brain's frozen.
No, it's all right. What are you doing? What are you doing for the weekend? Sleeping?
Oh, by the way, I missed the event yesterday for Giorgio, so I need to update you on that. I just pinged him a message. I couldn't do it. I just blocked, but I'll catch up with him next week. What am I doing this weekend? Got loads of work, man. I just got to pile through. I'm writing these essays on reviewing the year, so I've got to do 6 to 10. That's happening Monday. Got to do Brainfood. Got to do Christmas shopping. I'm way behind on that. I mean, Christ. Yeah, I'm looking for a break, but I can't see it. Do you know what I mean? How about you, man?
I'm playing rugby tonight at half time on the pitch in the Glasgow Warriors versus Northampton game.
What's happening? You're playing rugby,
Yeah.
but what's happening on the? Oh, there's another game on the side.
I'm playing on the pitch at half time in the Glasgow Warriors v Northampton game.
No way.
Against a bunch of former Scottish professional rugby players.
Okay,
for a charity thing.
So I hope this is like 3 minutes of rugby.
Well, it'll be
3 minutes of touch rugby.
It's 10. It's 10, I think. I'm playing before the game and at halftime against like former Scotland rugby players. And then I'm actually playing I've got a full rugby match tomorrow.
So you're going to be battered, basically. Physically, that's going to be hard work. You don't lose your strength, mate. I mean, it doesn't matter if you're 85. I think if you've got strength at 40 odd, you're going to keep it all the way through. So
that's the last thing to go.
I don't fancy your chances, mate. But
no,
nice to know you anyway. I just want to say it's been good hanging out. So yeah, good luck, and all right. I'll ping you next week, see if you're around, mate.
All right, see you later.
Right. End broadcast.